Now the next step of this task is to add in the site improvement areas. Now we could just run a cut fill volume and earthwork with the two surfaces, but it's not going to give us a true information because we're not accounting for the engineered materials and fill materials such as the paving and the subbase that are going to be brought into our project. So we want to account for those and actually create a subgrade surface that we can compare in our cut fill map and actually use that to balance our site. So to do that, we're going to go up and we're going to use the identified site regions. But before we do that, we want to make a quick change because we also want to know approximately how much curb and gutter is going to be needed for this site, as well as the amount of material and volumes that are going to be required. So we're going to go to categorize. We're going to select the design tab. And because we're temporarily using the top back of curb, we want to identify a site improvement area to this top back of curb. So I'm going to select this checkbox. We're going to come down to associate with site improvement. I'm going to select the paving curbing VDOT CG2 6-inch curb. So we're going to assign this to this layer so it will calculate and give us a total length of curbing as well as a volume of concrete for that curbing. So we'll click OK and we'll click close. Now that we've done that, we need to identify the site areas for our building and our parking area. So we're just going to go up and we're going to go to identify site regions. We're going to select the design category and you can see the orange is highlighted for our boundaries. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to come down and we're going to choose the building commercial slab or pad. We're going to give it a name, we'll call it building. And we're going to choose the location and pick inside the building. Then we're going to change the site improvement to our heavy duty pavement. Now we could separate this out between light duty and heavy duty if we wanted to go in a little bit more detail, but for this exercise we're just going to use the one heavy duty pavement across the entire site. So we'll put in and we'll call this heavy paving. It'll give us some rough values to work with. We'll pick inside of here. So now that we've done both of those and assign the improvements to that, we'll click close. And what we can do is we can either go directly to the takeoff report or to build surfaces. We'll go to the takeoff report, and what this is going to do when we select this data, we'll leave everything the way it is and we'll just click OK. We're not accounting for bulkage and shrinkage at this stage either, so we're just going to do this as a very rough determination of what our volumes are. So what's actually happening is, if you can see here in our 3D view, is actually building a third surface. So not only do we have our original ground surface, our finished ground surface, but we also have this finished grade with subgrade, or finished design with subgrade adjusted. So if I turn off the finished design, you can see that our site and our surface has been adjusted to account for the heavy duty paving as well as the building pad. Now we could, again, like I said, get into more detail. We could put in some heavy duty concrete for the loading docks. We could put in some sidewalk. We could put in the islands with some topsoil or sod or whatever we're going to have, whatever it's going to happen to be. We can put that in as well. But again, we're just looking for rough numbers here. So we've got our report. So I'm going to go to view and I'm going to float this view. So you can see here that we've got a cut of 138,000 cubic yards. We need about 83 cubic yards of fill, and therefore we have a deficit of 55,000 cubic yards of material. That's excess volume that we're cutting that we either have to remove from the site and haul off or do something with. So by adjusting our surface, maybe we can balance this out where we don't have to haul away as much material. If we take a look at some of the rest of the report, we can see here that how much concrete and aggregate is going to be needed for our building pad. We can see how much material is going to be needed for our paving area. So we've got our square yards. We can go down and look how much curb and gutter we're going to have. So we're going to need about maybe 8,400 cubic yards of material for our concrete curbing. And then it just breaks it down into some more detail and some more summary. So again, with this quick report, in this adjustment, we can get a quick idea of what it's going to take material wise and put a price on this to build this site just the way it is. Obviously we got more detail with retaining walls and roads and whatnot, but again, we're trying to just do some preliminary ideas and grading. And again, the idea is to adjust our site so that we can balance this out. So what we might want to do, or what we want to do next, is maybe determine what is the amount that we have to raise or lower this site to balance it out. So back on the takeoff tab, we're going to go to the earthwork balance. We're going to leave the 0 for haulage or borrow and waste. We're going to leave that to 0. And we're going to use the entire site. We'll just go ahead and click apply. So what this is going to do is it's going to create these surfaces, or adjust the surface, and give us basically a result of how much we're going to have to raise this site. So based on that information that we put in there, you can see that we can raise the site to remove some of this compacted access or excess that we have. We need to raise the site about 4.5 feet. So if we raise it up 4 feet from 450, maybe make it 455 or 454, then we could probably get a balanced site. Maybe we raise it up even a little bit more. We know we're going to have some material down here for a pond that we're going to have to dig out as well, and some other areas. So this gives us an idea of what we can do to raise or lower this site. So let's say we did want to raise it 4 or 5 feet and see what we get. If I pick the building pad and I pick the top back of curb, and I go to my data prep and elevation, and I raise this a delta elevation, let's say I bring it up 5 feet. Alright, so we'll click apply to that. So we've raised that up, we've got our tie, and if I close this and go back to takeoff and select build surfaces, it's going to rebuild the finished design surface. We'll click OK to this message, we won't worry about that. Rebuilt the design surface, rebuilt our site, and now if I go back to my balance, well, I could run the takeoff report. So let's take a look at that takeoff report again. We'll run that and see what the material is that we get. Again, that's just telling us that we need a boundary around our site. So there's some areas where it's triangulating across that it's also accounting for, so our numbers may be a little bit off. But again, we're just looking for some preliminary numbers here. So again, if I look at the report from a mass earthwork view, you can see that now we got almost we got a deficit. So we need about 6,000 cubic yards of material because I raised it up 5 feet. So now we know we've got that. So again, I could run the earthwork report balance again and know that I'm going to have to adjust it down 1/2 foot. But with that report tells us that we know we're going to be in deficit. We're going to have to bring some material in to finish this. But we know, again, this is rough. So if we set our finished floor elevation, instead of using 450, we use 455 moving forward. When we get into the detailed design, then that should somewhat balance out. We can adjust it again later once we start to get into more detail, but at least we want to adjust it as much. So we have a good idea of, with the preliminary grading, of what our finished floor should be and what we can do moving forward with the rest of the design.